The security footage would later show the exact moment everything changed. A small blonde girl, tears streaming down her face, standing frozen in the crowded Chicago mall while hundreds of shoppers rushed past. And then, a young woman with dark hair kneeling beside her, speaking softly in what appeared to be a foreign language. What the cameras couldn't capture was the way 6-year-old Katya Kozlova's sobs immediately quieted at the sound of her native Russian from this stranger's lips, or how Alessia Marino's heart clenched as she recognized the desperate loneliness in those grey eyes, the same loneliness she'd felt 3 years ago when another Russian had shattered her world. But most importantly, the footage couldn't show the man watching from the shadows. Roman Kozlov, Chicago's most feared Bratva leader, had been hunting for his missing daughter for 20 minutes. His security team had failed. The mall's staff had failed. Yet this Italian woman, this nobody, had accomplished in 30 seconds what his entire organization couldn't. As Roman stepped from the shadows, his platinum Patek Philippe catching the mall's fluorescent lights, he had no idea that the woman comforting his daughter would soon become the most dangerous threat to his carefully controlled world. The Magnificent Mile was Chicago's crown jewel, but to Alessia Marino it felt like a glittering prison. She pressed her face against the window of Wonderland Toys, watching wealthy families stroll past with shopping bags that cost more than her monthly rent. 3 years in America, and she still felt like an outsider looking in. "Alessia, can you handle the register? Mrs. Henderson wants to buy half the store for her grandson." Sarah, her manager, gestured toward the elegant woman examining a $1,000 dollhouse. Of course. Alessia smoothed her simple black dress, the same one she wore to her university classes, and approached with her practiced smile. Working at an upscale toy store in Water Tower Place wasn't glamorous, but it helped pay for her education degree, while her student visa slowly ticked toward expiration. The afternoon crowd thickened as school let out. Alessia restocked shelves, her mind wandering to the immigration lawyer's email she'd received that morning. Extension denied. She had 60 days to find a sponsor or return to Naples, where her mother's medical bills were drowning the family in debt. Focus, she told herself. One problem at a time. That's when she heard it, a small broken sob cutting through the mall's ambient noise. "Papa! Where is Papa?" The voice was tiny, desperate, speaking in what sounded like Russian. Alessia's blood froze. She hadn't heard Russian spoken with such raw emotion since Mikhail. Since the night she'd found him in their Rome apartment with another woman, laughing as he told his friend how the Italian girl had been so easy to manipulate. But this wasn't Mikhail. This was a child. Alessia rushed outside the store, scanning the crowd until she spotted her. A little girl with platinum blonde hair and enormous grey eyes, standing completely still while hundreds of people flowed around her like water around a stone. She couldn't have been older than 6, wearing a pristine white coat that probably cost more than Alessia's entire wardrobe. Without thinking, Alessia knelt beside her. "Don't cry, little one," she said softly in Russian, her voice gentle as silk. "What's your name?" The girl's head snapped up, shock replacing terror. "You speak Russian?" she whispered in her native tongue, hope blooming in her grey eyes like flowers after rain. "Yes, of course, my name is Alessia," she replied, still speaking Russian. The familiar words felt strange on her lips after so long, bittersweet reminders of Mikhail and the fool she'd been for love. "Katya," the girl whispered in Russian, fresh tears spilling over. "I can't find Papa." The lady said wait, but she left. And there are so many people. Alessia's heart clenched. She recognized that particular brand of abandonment, the confusion when someone you trusted simply disappeared. "It's okay, sweetheart," she continued in Russian, then switched to English. "We'll find him. What does your Papa look like?" "Tall, really tall, and he has grey eyes like me and dark hair, and he always wears expensive watches." Katya's English was accented but clear. "And he's very important. Everyone is scared of him except me." "Everyone is scared of him. An odd thing for a 6-year-old to say so matter-of-factly." "I'm sure he's looking for you too," Alessia said, though something cold settled in her stomach. "Let's go to security." "Katya, The voice cut through the mall noise like a blade, deep, commanding, with an accent that made Alessia's spine straighten involuntarily. She'd heard that tone before, the way powerful Russian men spoke when they expected immediate obedience. She looked up and forgot how to breathe. The man approaching them was tall, easily 6'3", with dark hair and the kind of sharp, angular features that belonged in a Renaissance sculpture. But it was his eyes that made her pulse stutter, grey like winter storms, and currently fixed on his daughter with relief so profound it was almost painful to witness. He wore a crisp white dress shirt with the top 4 buttons undone, revealing a muscled chest and a small, intricate tattoo on the side of his neck, some kind of spiral design that seemed oddly elegant for such a dangerous-looking man. A platinum watch glinted on his wrist as he knelt beside them. "Papa!" Katya launched herself into his arms, and for a moment, his entire face transformed. The cold mask slipped, revealing something vulnerable and achingly human. "I'm here, Princess. I'm here," he murmured in Russian, his voice rough with emotion as he held her tight. Then those storm-grey eyes lifted to Alessia, and she felt pinned like a butterfly to a board. "You found her?" It wasn't a question. His English was perfect, barely accented, but she caught the slight emphasis on "you," as if he couldn't quite believe it. "She was scared," Alessia said simply, rising to her feet. She had to tilt her head back to meet his gaze. I heard her crying in Russian and I couldn't walk away." His eyes narrowed slightly. "You speak Russian?" "Yes." She lifted her chin, refusing to be intimidated despite the way he seemed to command the very air around them. "Is that a problem?" Something flickered across his features, surprise perhaps, or calculation. "No, it's unexpected." He stood, Katya still clinging to his neck, and Alessia had to step back. He radiated power like heat from a furnace. "I'm Roman Kozlov." The name meant nothing to her, but the way he said it suggested it should. "Alessia Marino." "Italian." Not a question. "From Naples?" "Yes." "Yet you speak my language fluently." His head tilted slightly, studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "How?" The question she'd been dreading. "I had a Russian boyfriend in Rome. I learned for him." The words tasted bitter. Obviously, that didn't work out. Something dark flashed in Roman's eyes. He was a fool. The simple statement, delivered with such quiet conviction, made her cheeks burn. "I should get back to work," she said quickly. "Alessia, don't go." Katya's voice was muffled against her father's neck, spoken in Russian but her meaning clear. "Katya, she has to work," Roman replied in Russian, though his gaze never left Alessia's face. "But she's nice, and she talks like us." Katya protested in Russian, peeking at Alessia with pleading eyes. Roman's expression softened as he looked at his daughter, then back at Alessia. "My daughter seems quite taken with you. She's a sweet girl, you're lucky." "Yes," he said quietly. "I am." He paused, seeming to weigh his words. "Miss Marino, I find myself in need of someone to help with Katya. Her current caregiver has proven inadequate." Alessia blinked. "I'm sorry." "A nanny position, part-time, flexible around your schedule. The pay would be—" He named a figure that made her knees weak, more than she made in 3 months at the toy store. I don't understand. You don't even know me." "I know enough." His voice was matter-of-fact. "You speak Russian, you're kind to children, and you're the first person in months to make my daughter smile." As if to prove his point, Katya was beaming at Alessia from her father's arms. "Mr. Kozlov, I appreciate the offer, but—" "Think about it," he interrupted, pulling a business card from his pocket. The paper was thick, expensive, with only a name and phone number. "Call me when you decide." Before she could protest further, he was walking away, Katya waving goodbye over his shoulder and calling out in Russian, "See you soon, Alessia." Alessia stood frozen in the middle of the mall, staring at the card in her trembling hands. Roman Kozlov. The name still meant nothing to her, but something about the man himself. The way people unconsciously stepped aside as he passed, the expensive watch, his daughter's casual comment about everyone being afraid of him, sent warning bells clanging in her head. She should throw the card away, should forget about the mysterious Russian man and his lonely daughter, should stick to her safe, predictable life of school and work and counting every penny. But as she looked at the number on the card, all she could think about was Katya's grey eyes lighting up when she'd heard her native language, and the way Roman had looked at his daughter like she was his entire world. Maybe, just maybe, this was the answer to her prayers, or maybe it was the beginning of her downfall. Alessia stared at Roman Kozlov's business card for 3 days before she finally worked up the courage to call. Her tiny studio apartment in Pilsen felt even smaller than usual as she paced between the kitchenette and the Murphy bed, her phone clutched in her sweaty palm. The immigration lawyer's deadline loomed like a storm cloud, 57 days to find a sponsor or pack her bags for Naples. The nanny job could solve everything. The salary Roman had mentioned would cover her tuition, rent, and still leave enough to send money home to her mother. It was too good to be true, which meant it probably was. But every time she tried to talk herself out of calling, she remembered Katya's face lighting up when she'd heard Russian, and her resolve crumbled. "Just call," she muttered to herself. "What's the worst that could happen?" The phone rang twice before a deep voice answered. "Kozlov. Mr. Kozlov. This is Alessia Marino from the mall. You offered me a position." Alessia. The way he said her name, with that slight Russian accent curling around the syllables, made her stomach flutter traitorously. "I was beginning to think you wouldn't call." I needed time to consider. "And," she took a deep breath, "I'd like to discuss the position, if it's still available." "It is." "Can you meet me this afternoon? I'll send a car." "A car? That's not necessary. I can take the L—" "Miss Marino." His voice was gentle but firm. "I don't allow my employees to take public transportation to my home. Security reasons." Security reasons. Another red flag to add to her growing collection. "Where exactly is your home?" "Gold Coast." "I'll text you the address." Of course it was the Gold Coast, Chicago's most exclusive neighborhood, where old money and new money mingled in multi-million-dollar mansions overlooking Lake Michigan. "I'll be ready," she heard herself say. "Good. The car will arrive at 2 o'clock sharp." The line went dead, leaving Alessia staring at her phone in a mixture of excitement and terror. At exactly 2 o'clock, a sleek black Mercedes pulled up outside her building. The driver, a mountain of a man in a perfectly tailored suit, opened the rear door without a word. Alessia slid into leather seats that probably cost more than her monthly rent, trying not to gawk at the car's luxurious interior. The drive from Pilsen to Gold Coast was like traveling between two different worlds. Her neighborhood of taco trucks and corner stores gave way to tree-lined streets and pristine sidewalks. When the Mercedes finally stopped in front of a limestone mansion that looked like it belonged in a European fairy tale, Alessia's mouth went dry. "This way, miss," the driver said, his accent thick and unmistakably Russian. The front door opened before they reached it, revealing Roman Kozlov in dark jeans and a white button-down shirt. The same style as before, with the top buttons undone. The casual clothes did nothing to diminish his commanding presence. If anything, seeing him in his own environment made him seem even more dangerous. "Alessia, welcome." He stepped aside to let her enter, and she found herself in a foyer with marble floors and a crystal chandelier that probably cost more than her college tuition. "Your home is beautiful," she managed, trying not to stare at the sweeping staircase or the oil paintings that looked like they belonged in a museum. "Thank you. Katya is in the playroom. She's been asking about you since yesterday." He led her through rooms that belonged in architectural magazines, a living room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan, a dining room with a table that could seat 20, a kitchen that looked like something from a cooking show. Everything was pristine, expensive, and oddly cold despite its obvious luxury. "Papa, is Alessia here?" Katya's voice echoed from somewhere ahead, speaking in Russian. "Yes, princess, we're coming," Roman replied in the same language. The playroom was the first space that actually looked lived in. Toys were scattered across plush carpets, and colorful drawings covered one wall. Katya sat at a small table, coloring, but she jumped up the moment she saw Alessia. "You came!" she exclaimed in English, running over to hug Alessia's legs. "I drew you a picture." "You did?" Alessia knelt to Katya's level, accepting the crayon drawing of what appeared to be two stick figures holding hands. "It's beautiful. Is this us?" "Yes. And look," Katya pointed to some squiggly lines at the bottom. "I wrote thank you in Russian. Papa helped me with the letters." Alessia's heart melted. "That's wonderful, sweetheart." "Katya, why don't you show Alessia your toys while I make coffee?" Roman suggested. For the next hour, Alessia found herself completely charmed by the little girl. Katya was bright, funny, and desperately starved for attention. She spoke a mixture of Russian and English, switching between languages mid-sentence in the way only children could manage. When she showed Alessia her dollhouse, a replica of their actual mansion, she chatted about her toys, her drawings, and her loneliness with heartbreaking honesty. "The other ladies who watch me don't play," Katya confided in Russian as they arranged tiny furniture. "They just sit and look at their phones, but you're different." "How am I different?" Alessia asked in the same language. "You listen, and you talk to me like I'm important." The simple statement hit Alessia like a punch to the chest. This little girl, surrounded by luxury most children could only dream of, was starving for the one thing money couldn't buy: genuine affection. "Katya is quite taken with you," Roman's voice came from the doorway. He'd been watching them, though Alessia hadn't noticed when he'd returned. "She's a special little girl," Alessia said, smoothing Katya's hair. "Yes, she is." His expression was unreadable. "Walk with me. Katya, stay here and play." He led her to a study lined with leather-bound books and dominated by a massive desk. Through the windows, Lake Michigan stretched endlessly toward the horizon. "The position is Monday through Friday, 3 to 8, Roman said without preamble. "Occasionally weekends if I have business to attend to. Your job would be to care for Katya, help with her homework, and provide companionship." What happened to her mother? The question slipped out before Alessia could stop it. Roman's jaw tightened. "She died when Katya was 4. Cancer." "I'm sorry. It's been difficult. For both of us." He moved to the window, his hands clasped behind his back. "Katya has had 7 nannies in 2 years. None of them lasted more than a few months." "Why?" He turned to face her, and something in his expression made her pulse quicken. "They found my lifestyle incompatible with their comfort level." There it was, the confirmation of what she'd already suspected. Roman Kozlov wasn't just wealthy, he was dangerous. "What exactly is your lifestyle, Mr. Kozlov?" "I run a security consulting firm, international clients. Sometimes my work requires unconventional methods." "Security consulting, right. And she was the Queen of England." "I see. Do you?" He stepped closer, and she caught a hint of expensive cologne mixed with something darker, danger perhaps, or simply the scent of a man who was used to getting what he wanted. "Because if you take this position, Alessia, there will be rules, for your safety and Katya's." "What kind of rules?" "You don't ask questions about my business. You don't discuss our family with anyone outside this house. And you never, under any circumstances, put yourself or my daughter in danger." The way he said "my daughter" sent a shiver down her spine. Possessive didn't begin to cover it. "And if I agree to these rules? Then you'll be compensated generously for your discretion." He named the salary again, enough to solve all her problems and then some. Plus health insurance, paid vacation, and assistance with your visa situation. Alessia's breath caught. "You can help with my visa." "I have connections, immigration lawyers who owe me favors." Of course he did. Men like Roman Kozlov always had connections. She should walk away, should thank him politely and take the L back to her safe, predictable life. But as she looked out at the lake, all she could think about was Katya's lonely grey eyes and her mother's medical bills and the ticking clock of her visa expiration. "I'll take the job," she heard herself say. Roman smiled, the first genuine smile she'd seen from him. It transformed his entire face, making him look younger and infinitely more dangerous to her peace of mind. "Excellent. You start Monday." As the Mercedes drove her home through the darkening streets of Chicago, Alessia couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just signed a deal with the devil himself. But maybe, just maybe, the devil had a little girl who needed her. By Friday of her first week, Alessia had fallen completely in love with Katya Kozlova. The little girl was brilliant, funny, and heartbreakingly eager for attention. She spoke 3 languages fluently, could solve puzzles meant for children twice her age, and had an imagination that turned their afternoon walks around Lincoln Park into elaborate adventures involving princesses and dragons. She was also the loneliest child Alessia had ever met. "Why don't you have friends at school?" Alessia asked as they sat in Millennium Park, watching other children play on the Crown Fountain while Katya remained glued to her side. Katya shrugged, her small fingers picking at the grass. "Papa says it's not safe, and the other kids think I'm weird because I have bodyguards." Bodyguards, another piece of the puzzle that was Roman Kozlov's life. Alessia had noticed the men in dark suits who seemed to materialize whenever they left the house, always staying just far enough away to maintain the illusion of privacy. "That must be hard," Alessia said gently. "It's okay. I have you now." Katya smiled up at her with such pure trust that Alessia's heart clenched. "Will you teach me to braid hair, like yours?" "Of course, sweetheart." They spent the next hour on the grass, Alessia patiently showing Katya how to weave 3 strands together, while the little girl chattered about everything and nothing. It was peaceful, normal, the kind of afternoon Alessia had dreamed of having with her own children someday. "You're good with her." Alessia looked up to find Roman approaching, his white dress shirt pristine despite the heat, his platinum watch catching the afternoon sun. The small Maori tattoo on his neck was just visible above his collar, that spiral design that seemed to symbolize something important, though she'd never asked what. "She's easy to love," Alessia replied, smoothing Katya's newly braided hair. "Papa, look what Alessia taught me." Katya jumped up to show off her braid, switching to Russian in her excitement. "Beautiful princess," Roman replied in the same language, but his eyes were on Alessia. "How was your day?" "We went to the aquarium, then the park, and Alessia helped me with my math homework," Katya reported. "And she made me real Italian pasta for lunch, not the kind from a box." "Did she now?" Roman's mouth quirked upward. "And how was this real Italian pasta?" "The best thing ever. Better than anything the other ladies made." The casual dismissal of her previous nannies made Alessia wonder again what had driven them away. Roman seemed like a devoted father, and Katya was an angel. What had made 7 women quit in 2 years? "We should head home," Roman said, checking his watch. "I have a conference call at 6. The drive back to Gold Coast was quiet, Katya dozing against Alessia's shoulder, while Roman made calls in rapid Russian. Alessia caught enough words to understand he was discussing some kind of shipment, but the details were lost in technical terms she didn't recognize. "Alessia." Roman's voice was soft, careful not to wake his daughter. "Tomorrow is Saturday. I have business to attend to, but I'd like you to stay with Katya, overnight if possible." "Overnight? I'll be gone until Sunday afternoon. My housekeeper can prepare the guest room." Alessia hesitated. Spending the night in Roman's mansion felt like crossing a line, though she couldn't articulate why. "What kind of business?" His eyes met hers in the rearview mirror, and she saw something flicker there. Warning, perhaps, or simply acknowledgement that she was asking the wrong questions. "The kind that requires my full attention," he said finally. "Right. Security consulting." "Of course. I'll stay with Katya." Saturday morning arrived grey and drizzling, matching Alessia's mood as she watched Roman's Mercedes disappear down the tree-lined street. He'd left before dawn, kissing Katya goodbye and giving Alessia a list of emergency contacts that included numbers for his doctor, his lawyer, and something called security dispatch. "Where does Papa go when he has business?" Katya asked over breakfast, speaking in Russian as she often did when they were alone. "I don't know, sweetheart," Alessia replied honestly in the same language. "Work things, I suppose. I hope he comes back safe," Katya said matter-of-factly, as if Roman's safety was genuinely in question. The comment sent a chill down Alessia's spine, But before she could ask what Katya meant, the little girl had moved on to planning their day. They spent the morning baking cookies and the afternoon watching Disney movies in the mansion's home theater. It should have been perfect. But Alessia couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled over her since Roman left. That evening, as she was putting Katya to bed, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Your boss isn't who you think he is. Check the news." Alessia stared at the message, her blood running cold. Someone knew where she worked. Someone was watching. "Alessia, will you read me a story?" Katya's voice pulled her back to the present. "Of course, baby." Alessia forced a smile, tucking the phone away. "Which book?" After Katya fell asleep, Alessia crept downstairs to the study, her hands shaking as she opened Roman's laptop. She told herself she was being paranoid, that the text was probably spam or a wrong number, but when she typed Roman Kozlov Chicago into the search engine, her world tilted on its axis. The first result was a Chicago Tribune article from 6 months ago. Federal investigation into alleged Russian organized crime continues. Roman's photo stared back at her from the screen, the same sharp features, the same storm-grey eyes. But in this context, he looked every inch the dangerous criminal the article suggested he might be. Alleged connections to money laundering, suspected involvement in illegal arms trafficking, possible ties to the Russian Bratva. Alessia's hands flew to her mouth as she read, each paragraph confirming her worst fears. Roman Kozlov wasn't just wealthy and mysterious. He was potentially one of the most dangerous men in Chicago, and she was alone in his house with his daughter. Her phone buzzed again, another text from the same unknown number. "Now you know, get out while you still can." Alessia's first instinct was to run, to grab her things and disappear into the night. But as she looked toward the stairs where Katya slept peacefully, trusting and innocent, she realized she couldn't abandon the little girl. Whatever Roman was involved in, Katya was just a child caught in the middle. The sound of a car in the driveway made her heart stop. Roman wasn't supposed to return until tomorrow afternoon. Alessia quickly closed the laptop and crept to the window, peering through the curtains. 3 black SUVs sat in the circular drive, engines running. Men in dark clothing were getting out, moving with military precision toward the house. This wasn't Roman coming home early. This was something else entirely. Alessia's training kicked in, not nanny training, but the self-defense classes her father had insisted she take before moving to America. She grabbed her phone and ran upstairs, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Katya," she whispered, gently shaking the sleeping child. "Katya, wake up. We need to play a game." "Alessia." Katya's eyes opened, confused and sleepy. "Remember how you said your papa taught you about staying safe? We're going to practice that now." The sound of the front door opening echoed through the house, followed by heavy footsteps and voices, speaking in what sounded like Ukrainian. Not Russian, Ukrainian. Which meant these men weren't Roman's people. "Is Papa home?" Katya whispered in Russian. "No, sweetheart. That's why we're playing the hiding game." Alessia scooped Katya into her arms, grabbing the little girl's favorite stuffed rabbit. "We're going to be very quiet mice, okay?" She carried Katya to the master bedroom, remembering the panic room Roman had mentioned during her first tour of the house. She'd thought he was joking, now she prayed he wasn't. The voices were getting closer, moving through the house with purpose, searching for something. Or someone. Alessia found the hidden panel behind the bookshelf, her fingers trembling as she entered the code Roman had made her memorize, just in case. The steel door slid open silently, revealing a small room equipped with monitors, a phone, and enough supplies for several days. "This is like a secret fort," Katya whispered in wonder, as Alessia sealed them inside. "Exactly like that," Alessia agreed, though her voice shook. She reached for the phone with one hand, while holding Katya close with the other. She dialed the first number on Roman's emergency list, security dispatch. "Kozlov residence has been breached," she whispered when a gruff voice answered. "Unknown hostiles in the house. We're in the safe room." "Copy that. Boss is en route. ETA 15 minutes. Stay put." 15 minutes felt like a lifetime as they huddled in the dark, listening to the sounds of the house being systematically searched. Katya remained remarkably calm, as if this was just another part of her unusual childhood. When the sounds finally stopped, replaced by different voices, Russian voices, Alessia knew Roman had arrived. The steel door slid open, and there he was, still in his white dress shirt, but now there was something different about him, something cold and deadly that made her understand exactly why 7 nannies had quit. "Are you hurt?" His voice was carefully controlled, but she could see the rage burning in his grey eyes. "We're fine," Alessia managed. Roman's gaze moved to his daughter, and his expression softened infinitesimally. "Hey, princess. You were very brave." "Alessia took care of me," Katya said in Russian. "She knew about the secret room." "Did she?" Roman's eyes returned to Alessia, and she saw something new there. Respect, perhaps, or gratitude. "Who were they?" Alessia asked. "People who made a very serious mistake," Roman replied, his voice like winter steel. As he helped them out of the safe room, Alessia caught sight of the monitors showing the mansion's exterior. Men in suits were loading bodies into the black SUVs. Bodies. Roman had killed them. All of them. And somehow that should have terrified her more than it did. The next morning, Alessia sat in Roman's kitchen drinking coffee that tasted like ash, trying to process what she'd witnessed. Katya was upstairs getting dressed, chattering happily about their adventure, as if hiding from armed intruders was just another game. Roman sat across from her, looking perfectly composed in his usual white dress shirt, the Maori tattoo on his neck, a stark reminder of the man beneath the civilized exterior. His platinum watch caught the morning light as he reached for his coffee, and Alessia found herself staring at his hands, the same hands that had eliminated 3 men less than 12 hours ago. "You have questions," he said without looking up from his newspaper. "A few." Alessia's voice came out steadier than she felt. "Starting with who you really are. I told you, I run a security consulting firm. Security consultants don't have panic rooms in their homes or emergency protocols that involve body removal." Roman folded his newspaper with precise movements, finally meeting her gaze. "What did you find when you searched my name online?" Heat flooded Alessia's cheeks. "I don't know what you... Don't lie to me, Alessia, it doesn't suit you." His voice was gentle but firm. "Someone texted you yesterday, told you to look me up. What did you find?" She lifted her chin, refusing to be intimidated. "Articles about federal investigations, allegations of money laundering and arms trafficking, possible connections to Russian organized crime. And what do you think about these allegations?" "I think they're probably true." Roman leaned back in his chair, studying her with those penetrating grey eyes. "Most people would have run by now. Most people don't care about Katya the way I do." Something flickered across his features. Surprise, perhaps, or something deeper. "She's become important to you. She's a 6-year-old child who's lost her mother and barely sees her father. Of course she's important to me." "Even knowing what I am?" Alessia considered the question seriously. "What are you, Roman?" "Because from where I'm sitting, you're a man who loves his daughter enough to build her a safe room, who came home the moment she was in danger, who's never been anything but respectful to me." "I'm a criminal, Alessia, the kind of man your parents warned you about." "My parents warned me about a lot of things. They never warned me about falling in love with a little girl who needs me." The words hung between them, honest and raw. Roman's expression shifted, the cold mask slipping to reveal something vulnerable underneath. "The men last night," he said finally, "they were sent by someone who wants to hurt me. They would have used you and Katya to do it. But they didn't, because you stopped them. I killed them. I know." Alessia met his gaze steadily. "And I'm grateful." Roman went very still. "Grateful?" "They came into your home. They threatened your daughter. They would have hurt an innocent child to get to you." She leaned forward, her voice fierce. "So yes, I'm grateful you stopped them." "You're not what I expected," Roman said quietly. "What did you expect?" "Someone who would run screaming when she learned the truth." "I'm not running." "Why not?" The question hung in the air between them, loaded with implications neither of them was ready to address. Alessia could feel the shift in the atmosphere, the way Roman was looking at her, not like an employee anymore, but like a woman he was seeing for the first time. "Because Katya needs me," she said finally. "And maybe you do too." Roman's breath caught, so softly she almost missed it. "Alessia? Papa? Alessia?" Katya's voice echoed from the stairs, breaking the tension. "Are you making breakfast?" "Coming, Princess," Roman called back, but his eyes never left Alessia's face. The rest of the day passed in a strange sort of normalcy. Roman worked from his study, while Alessia helped Katya with a school project about family trees. It should have been awkward, but instead it felt right. Like they were a real family instead of an employer, employee, and child. That evening, after Katya was asleep, Roman found Alessia in the kitchen cleaning up from dinner. "You don't have to do that," he said, leaning against the doorframe. "Maria will handle it tomorrow." "I don't mind." Alessia continued washing dishes, needing something to do with her hands. "It feels normal." Normal. He said the word like it was foreign to him. "When was the last time you felt normal?" "Honestly, not since I came to America. Everything here has been about survival, work, school, visa applications. I forgot what it felt like to just be." Roman moved closer, and she could smell his cologne, something expensive and masculine that made her pulse quicken. "And now I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." The admission slipped out before she could stop it. Even knowing the danger. Alessia turned to face him, surprised by how close he was standing. "Especially knowing the danger." "Why?" "Because for the first time in 3 years, I'm not just surviving, I'm living." She looked up at him, her heart hammering. "Katya makes me remember what it's like to love someone unconditionally. And you? What about me? You make me remember what it's like to feel safe, even in the middle of chaos." Roman's hand came up to cup her cheek, his thumb tracing the line of her cheekbone. "You have no idea what you do to me," he said softly. "Tell me." "You walk into my house, my cold, empty house, and suddenly there's laughter in the halls. Katya smiles more in 1 week with you than she has in 2 years. You speak my language, you understand my world, and you're not afraid of what I am. Should I be afraid? Terrified?" His thumb moved to trace her lower lip, and she shivered. "I'm not a good man, Alessia. I've done things that would give you nightmares. We all have darkness in our past. Not like mine. Try me." Roman's eyes searched her face as if looking for some sign that she would run if he told her the truth. "I took over my father's organization when I was 25. Built it into something bigger, more powerful than he ever dreamed. I've killed men with my bare hands. I've destroyed families, ended lives, made decisions that affected thousands of people. Why? Because it was the only way to survive in my world, the only way to protect what matters to me. And what matters to you? Katya." His voice was rough with emotion. "She's everything to me, the only pure thing in my life." "Not the only thing," Alessia whispered. Roman's breath caught. "Alessia, I know what you are, Roman. I know what you've done, and I'm still here. You shouldn't be. But I am." She reached up to touch the Maori tattoo on his neck, feeling him tense under her fingers. "What does this mean?" "New beginnings," he said quietly. "I got it after Katya was born. Thought maybe I could change, become someone worthy of being her father." "You are worthy." "No, I'm not. But with you here, for the first time I think I could be." The confession hung between them, raw and honest. Alessia could see the war in his eyes, the desire to reach for her warring with the knowledge that he was dangerous, that caring about him could destroy her. "Roman," she whispered. "I should let you go," he said, but his hand was still on her face, his thumb still tracing patterns on her skin. "I should send you away before you get hurt. What if I don't want to go? Then God help us both." He leaned down, and for a moment she thought he was going to kiss her. Instead, he rested his forehead against hers, his breathing ragged. "I can't promise you safety," he whispered. "I can't promise you normal. All I can promise is that I will protect you with my life, and I will never lie to you again." "That's enough," Alessia breathed. "That's more than enough." When he finally kissed her, it was soft and desperate and full of promises neither of them was ready to make. And as his arms came around her, pulling her against his chest, Alessia realized she was falling in love with the most dangerous man in Chicago, and she didn't care. 3 weeks later, Alessia's world shattered with a single phone call. She was in Lincoln Park with Katya, watching the little girl feed ducks while Roman's bodyguards maintained their discreet perimeter. Her phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number, and something cold settled in her stomach as she answered. Alessia Marino. The voice was crisp, professional, with a slight accent she couldn't place. Yes, my name is Agent Sarah Chen, FBI. I need to speak with you about your employer, Roman Kozlov. Alessia's blood turned to ice. I'm sorry, I don't understand. Miss Marino, we know you've been working for Mr. Kozlov for almost a month. We also know you witnessed the incident at his residence 3 weeks ago. The incident. They meant the night armed men had broken into Roman's house, the night he'd killed 3 people to protect his daughter. I don't know what you're talking about, Alessia said carefully. We have surveillance footage of the body removal, Miss Marino. We know what happened. Katya looked up from the ducks, sensing something wrong. Alessia, are you okay? I'm fine, sweetheart, Alessia managed, forcing a smile. Keep feeding the ducks. Miss Marino, Agent Chen continued, Roman Kozlov is the head of one of the most dangerous criminal organizations in the Midwest. He's responsible for money laundering, arms trafficking, and at least 12 confirmed murders. That's impossible. But even as she said it, Alessia remembered the cold efficiency with which Roman had handled the intruders, the way his men had cleaned up the scene like they'd done it 100 times before. We've been building a case against him for 2 years, but we need someone on the inside, someone he trusts. You want me to spy on him? We want you to help us put a dangerous criminal behind bars. And if I refuse, your student visa expires in 32 days. Without a sponsor, you'll be deported back to Italy. The threat was clear. Cooperate or lose everything she'd built in America. I need time to think, Alessia whispered. You have 24 hours. I'll call you tomorrow with instructions. The line went dead, leaving Alessia staring at her phone in horror. Alessia! Katya's voice broke through her panic. Look, the mama duck has babies. Alessia looked at the little girl, bright, innocent, trusting, and felt her heart break. How could she betray the child who'd become like a daughter to her? How could she destroy the only family she'd ever really known? But how could she throw away her future, her chance at the American dream she'd sacrificed everything to pursue? That evening, Roman noticed her distraction immediately. You're quiet tonight, he observed as they sat in his study after putting Katya to bed. He was reviewing papers at his desk while she graded Katya's homework, a domestic scene that had become their routine. Just tired, Alessia lied. Roman set down his pen and really looked at her. What's wrong? Nothing, I'm fine. Alessia. He stood and moved to the couch where she sat, his grey eyes concerned. Talk to me. The gentleness in his voice almost broke her resolve. This was the man who read bedtime stories in 3 languages, who remembered that she liked her coffee with extra cream, who'd held her while she cried about her mother's latest medical bills. This was also the man the FBI claimed was a killer. Roman, she said carefully, what exactly do you do? Your real business, I mean. His expression shuttered immediately. Why are you asking? Because I care about you, about Katya, and I need to understand what I'm part of. Roman was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. What brought this on? The other night, the men who broke in, the way you handled it. She met his gaze steadily. That wasn't the first time something like that happened, was it? No. Will it happen again? Probably. And you'll handle it the same way? If necessary. His voice was matter-of-fact. I protect what's mine, Alessia. By any means necessary. Even if it means killing people? Especially if it means killing people. The casual way he said it sent a chill down her spine. How many people have you killed, Roman? More than you want to know. Try me. He leaned back, his expression unreadable. Why does it matter? You said you weren't afraid of what I am. I'm not afraid, I need to understand. Understand what? Whether the man I'm falling in love with is worth destroying my life for. The words hung between them, honest and raw. Roman's breath caught, his grey eyes widening slightly. "You're falling in love with me?" "Yes." There was no point in lying now. "And it terrifies me." Roman reached for her, pulling her into his arms with desperate urgency. "Alessia, tell me the truth," she whispered against his chest. "All of it. The truth is that I'm exactly what you think I am. I run the Chicago Bratva. I launder money, I traffic weapons, and I eliminate threats to my organization." His voice was rough with emotion. "The truth is that I've done terrible things, and I'll probably do more terrible things to keep you and Katya safe. And the truth is also that I love you," he continued, his arms tightening around her. "I love you so much it scares me. You and Katya are the only good things in my life, and I'll burn the world down before I let anyone hurt you." Alessia closed her eyes, feeling tears slip down her cheeks. "The FBI contacted me today." Roman went very still. "What?" "They want me to spy on you. They said if I don't cooperate, they'll have me deported." "Son of a bitch." Roman's voice was deadly quiet. "What did you tell them?" "That I needed time to think." "And what are you thinking?" Alessia pulled back to look at him, seeing the fear in his eyes. Not fear for himself, but fear that he was about to lose her. "I'm thinking that I don't care what you've done," she said softly. "I don't care what the FBI thinks you are. I care about the man who makes his daughter pancakes in the shape of animals. I care about the man who learned Italian phrases just to make me feel at home. I care about the man who's shown me more kindness in a month than anyone else has in 3 years. Alessia." "I'm thinking that you helped a lost little girl at the mall," she continued, echoing the title that had brought them together. "Not knowing she was the Mafia boss's daughter. But you saved us both. Roman, you brought us home." Roman's eyes filled with something that might have been tears. "You're choosing me, even knowing what it means." "I'm choosing us, you, me, and Katya, whatever that looks like. It means running. Tonight. The FBI won't give up, and I won't let them use you against me." "Where will we go?" "I have a house in the Cayman Islands. We can disappear there, start over." "What about your organization?" "I'll hand it over to my lieutenant. It's time I retired anyway." Alessia thought about her life in Chicago, her tiny apartment, her part-time job, her uncertain future. Then she thought about Katya's laughter, Roman's gentle hands, and the family they'd built together in this cold, beautiful house. "When do we leave?" "Tomorrow night. Can you be ready? For you and Katya." "I can be ready for anything." Roman kissed her then, desperate and grateful and full of promises for their uncertain future. And as his arms came around her, Alessia realized that sometimes love meant choosing the dangerous path, the one that led away from everything safe and familiar. Sometimes love meant running into the darkness with the person who made you feel like home. "I love you," Roman whispered against her lips. "I love you too," she whispered back. "Both of you. Forever." Outside, Chicago glittered in the darkness, unaware that one of its most dangerous residents was about to disappear forever. And in a mansion overlooking Lake Michigan, a little girl slept peacefully while the two people who loved her most planned their escape into a new life, a life where they could finally be the family they were always meant to be. 2 years later, Alessia stood on the beach in Grand Cayman, watching Roman teach Katya to surf in the crystal-clear water. The little girl's laughter carried on the ocean breeze, bright and joyful in a way that still took Alessia's breath away. "Mama, look, I'm standing," Katya called out in English, though she still spoke Russian when she was excited or scared. Mama. The title had come naturally after Roman officially adopted her as his wife and Katya's stepmother 6 months ago. Their wedding had been small, just the 3 of them and a local officiant on this very beach, but it had been perfect. "I see you, baby. You're amazing," Alessia called back, her hand instinctively moving to her still flat stomach where their second child grew. Roman caught the gesture and grinned, wading through the water to reach her. His white linen shirt was soaked, his dark hair dripping, and the Maori tattoo on his neck had faded slightly in the Caribbean sun, but his grey eyes were brighter than she'd ever seen them. "How are you feeling?" he asked, pulling her into his arms despite being wet. Perfect, she said honestly. Absolutely perfect. No regrets? About leaving Chicago? About choosing this life? She looked at Katya, who was now trying to convince a hermit crab to be her friend, then back at Roman. Never. Even though I'm still the same man who— You're not the same man, Alessia interrupted. You're better. We all are. Roman kissed her forehead, then her lips, soft and sweet and full of the love that had transformed them all. Thank you, he whispered. For what? For seeing past what I was to what I could become, for giving me a family worth changing for. Thank you for letting me help a lost little girl at the mall, Alessia replied, smiling. Best decision I ever made. In the distance, Katya's laughter mixed with the sound of waves, and Alessia knew that sometimes the most dangerous choices led to the most beautiful destinations.